What's up? What's up, y'all? Straight to the point, sports and entertainment. Want y'all to hit that like button and sub to the channel if you're not a member, and also hit them notifications so that you're able to get all of my content and as well as all of my videos. Now, recently, Dr. J was on the big podcast with Shaquille O'Neal, and he basically stated his top five, and it did not include Jordan, and it didn't include LeBron, okay? And as you know, everybody and their mama was in a tirade and in a frenzy because Dr. J didn't have LeBron or didn't have Jordan. And it's really a lot of LeBron James fans. I don't think a lot of people was too much tripping about Jordan. But I wanted to give my take on it because a lot of people feel that Dr. J is, either hating on LeBron or jealous of Jordan, which it's not the case, okay? It's not the case. People got to understand what time period Dr. J was playing in, okay? He played in an era long before Jordan had even started gracing the basketball court. And he grew up watching certain players. Okay, so just by instinct, he's not gonna have Michael Jordan in his top five. That would be the same if somebody like Wilt Chamberlain, God rest his soul, was still living. He wouldn't have Jordan in his top five, and I don't think a guy like Bill Russell, I don't think a guy like Bob Cousy, I don't think a guy like John Havlicek, guys like that played in the era of basketball when it was like this, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, around that time. It's just not. I know a lot of family members that are around Dr. J's age. They don't even mention Jordan. They don't mention Jordan. I don't include LeBron because that's the younger generation. You know what I'm saying? And I know people gonna get emotional. They're gonna be like, "Oh man, well you hating on LeBron and all that?" Nah, it ain't none of that shit. All right. It's just the fact that you have to realize what type of era these players are coming from. This is what you have to really understand, okay? It makes sense for Dr. J not to have a guy like Michael Jordan in his top five, okay? I'm pretty sure that he has a lot of respect and a lot of admiration for Jordan, because if people don't really understand, Jordan actually he admired guys like David Thompson. He said, who he said he watched growing up, and Dr. J. He emulated some of his moves and stuff, and a few others. And I think a lot of people are getting things misconstrued and twisted, because a lot of people see Dr. J, and as well as a few others. I've mentioned this before in another video. Guys like him and Connie Hawkins, and of course David Thompson. They were high flyers, and they did a lot of stuff. And I'm talking about when they were in their primes and stuff. They were high flyers and very athletic players who were able to get their buckets, through soaring through the air and just doing some amazing things. Jordan did the same thing. Okay. However, those were the guys that were seen as the guys that actually started that sort of thing, as well as Elgin Baylor. I'm forgetting about Elgin Baylor too. We have to understand that there are plenty of guys in the NBA or that have played in the NBA that aren't always going to have Jordan in their top five. It's just like me, right? I don't have Magic as my starting point guard, but people don't. It's a lot of people that go crazy and stuff like that, and they don't understand my logic until I actually explain to them why I don't have a guy like Magic in my top five. People get all crazy because I don't. Well, I'm talking about starting five. Everybody's starting five is different. It doesn't mean that you're jealous of that person. It doesn't mean that you're hating on that person. I know plenty of guys that have Kobe Bryant as their starting shooting guard and not Michael Jordan. I know plenty of guys that don't have. I know some guys that have their Lakers team as their starting five. They don't have anybody, including like Michael Jordan or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Larry Bird or anybody. So everybody has their right to choose who they want in their top five or in their starting five. It's just like me. I don't have a top five. Like I've told people time and time again. I got an actual roster, but most people want to know who's your top three or who's your top five. I go, no, this is my starting five, and I rank them by position, and that's the way that I do it. Everybody does things differently. But to get back to my point, Dr. J, he's gonna choose based on who he was, who he watched. You know what I'm saying? Who he grew up watching, and of course he wouldn't choose Jordan. And I don't think that's because he's hating on Jordan or he's got anything personal against Jordan. A lot of people have always thought that. Now, if you said somebody like George Gervin probably had something against Jordan or probably hated on Jordan, okay, well, I could believe that. You know what I'm saying? Because there's kind of that evidence there that George Gervin had something personal against Jordan. But Dr. J never had anything against Jordan. I think a lot of people, they get things, twisted because Dr. J was one of the first ones. Well, it was him and it was David Thompson, and I'm talking about the slam dunk contest. David Thompson, he jumped from the free throw line, did the dunk and everything. Dr. J did it, and then of course MJ did it. And I think some people, they'll automatically assume stuff, saying that Dr. J automatically doesn't like Jordan because of that, and that's not true. Or you see Jordan doing a lot of the baseline moves that Dr. J used to do. Well, Dr. J wasn't the only one that was doing that. There were a lot of guys that were doing baseline moves, but it doesn't really get talked about. Such as Connie Hawkins and Elgin Baylor, guys like that. But I know plenty of people that they don't. Now I do have a couple of family members, and I also got a couple of friends that can't stand Michael Jordan, both from a personal standpoint, and they can't stand him, in terms of his basketball play either. Like I knew one family member, an uncle of mine. He was like, every time he would watch, his team play the Bulls, he'd be like, "Oh Lord, don't give it to Michael Jordan." It was just something that he couldn't stand about Michael Jordan. Now there are some people like that, But we have to accept that fact. Everybody doesn't like LeBron. Everybody doesn't like MJ. There's some people that don't like Dr. J. But again, that's just the crazy fanatic attitude of some people because you don't have them. They're certain player in the top five, and they'll be like, man, what are you, crazy or something like that? They want to slap you upside your head. Some of them be ready to fight you because you didn't choose you didn't choose a certain player and stuff like that. It's just crazy. Like I tell people, when I tell people my starting five, you should see the reaction that I get from some people, especially when I put Hakeem Olajuwon as my starting center. You know, but that's a great debate. It's good for arguments because it'll go on and on and on. Because when we get to now, I want to talk about comparison. If we get to comparison and contrast and head to head, the beauty of it is that we'll never know with some of these players because they never had some of these players never had an opportunity to play each other. Some of them did. If you like, for instance, when you talk about Magic versus Mike, or Mike versus Bird, or Mike versus Isaiah, or Kobe versus LeBron, or something like that. But like when you talk about somebody they got you know Shaq versus Wilt, or Hakeem Olajuwon versus George Mikan, or you know uh, Kareem versus Bob Pettit, or something like that. The beauty of that, there's beauty in that because we'll never know because those guys never had a chance to go head to head. So, and getting back to my point, man, people got to get out of their fucking feelings because it's going to go on and on. People are going to not have MJ in their top five. People are not going to have LeBron in their top five. And they just got to suck that shit up. But anyway, y'all let me know what you think. If you want to put your top five, who you got in there. And I'll be putting what Dr. J said in the description too. Make sure you like the video, share it, subscribe. Also hit them notifications. Until then, it's straight to the point. Sports and entertainment. I'll get at y'all later.